Is rent control a serious threat to landlords in England and Wales? Well, we've seen that they're bringing in rent controls almost by the back door in Scotland, where they have a very left-wing socialist government, and they're bringing in measures in Wales as well. The biggest market is, of course, England. You know, London, the north of England. If you're not from this country, you'll know that the United Kingdom is made up of several nations which have got some of their own authorities. The Scottish have got their own, Scotland's got their own government, the Welsh have got their own assembly, so they can make a lot of laws themselves. And but the biggest part of the economy of the UK is England, London, the northern cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and all over. So rent controls have not come in here. They've not been in this country since the sort of the 50s, 60s, 70s era, where they had rent controls, and it frankly was a bit of a disaster really, because it meant renting became very expensive. It was very scarce. I remember, just briefly tell you a quick story. When I first tried to rent a flat, there were agencies in London, and you had to sort of go there and register, and then you had to keep phoning them up every day because there was nothing around. And there was like a queue of people there. It was crazy. It was like a queue of people trying to get properties, and you'd ring them up. Anything? No, we haven't got anything. I'll let you know. And you basically had to hassle and badger them to even get an appointment to view. I remember going on a viewing in somewhere called Highgate once, and we all went there, and myself and my partner were on a bus, and we just turned up at this viewing, and there was about 10 people there, and they all looked around, and I think that the landlord said something like, "This place is gone already, but there's another place over in some other town." It was like a bus ride away. I can't remember where it was now, but it wasn't walking distance. So some people jumped into their car, and we tried to get a bus there, and of course by the time we got there, that was gone. But this was what was going on, and there were terrible places to be rented. And this was during the time of rent controls, where the market got around it by not giving people a proper rental lease. They gave you a kind of a license where they could remove you if you were causing any problems, and so on. So it did cause, and the people who had the old leases had what's called a fixed rent control rent, which stayed the same forever. I mean, it was bonkers. It was crazy. There were properties in the West End of London, right in central London, where this was a multi-million-pound property where you had some old person, old man or old lady in a flat. They'd been there 30 years, and they were paying like pennies in rent. It was like less than £1 a week in rent. And if these properties were sold at auction, and you could persuade the person to leave by giving them a lot of money to leave, that property immediately gained value. And there are still properties coming up in auctions now where it says, and it looks really cheap. You think that's a really cheap house, and then you see subject to a rent control tenancy, blah blah blah. So obviously the landlord has tried to offer them money to move. They don't want to move because they're on this low rent, and they sell it on because maybe someone else will be able to, or you just have to wait for the person to die. So that's what rent control does, and it's a bit scary now, because they have brought in certain emergency measures during the last couple of years, and they're talking about either capping rents. They're talking about these sort of measures. Of course, we've got the Renters Reform Act, and that is causing many landlords right now to move out of the normal buy-to-let sector and move their property into holiday lets or serviced accommodation, where you don't have the same regulation. You don't have even the same tax treatment on your mortgage. If you've got a holiday let, you can claim tax relief on your mortgage, which buy-to-let landlords cannot claim. This is what George Osborne did to us, and it really changed the whole market. So I won't go on about that, but all that will happen if they bring in rent controls, landlords will be driven away. They'll either just give up and remove their stock and their inventory from the market. Some will switch into serviced accommodation, but that will eventually become sort of saturated, and then they might bring in more regulation for that market. And some landlords will just say, "I said enough of this." A lot of landlords have just got one or two properties. They're putting their money into that property for retirement purposes. To instead of putting their money in pensions, they bought a property, and they hope that that mortgage will be paid off, and then they can live off the rental income from that property, or they can sell it and move off to Spain or the south coast or whatever. But a lot of those landlords will just drop out. They'll think, well, I just can't be bothered. And I know a lot of them already have done. Because, the bigger landlords will stay in the market, obviously, and the big corporates will stay in the market. There are a lot of corporates now building properties to specifically to rent, co-living properties, luxury little rooms and studios with nice co-living spaces where people can meet for coffee and do their work on their Apple Macs and all that sort of stuff. So that's the new kind of market. But obviously some landlords will stay around in the market. You can still get quite a good return on your money. But with rising interest rates, it's going to be a pretty close run thing. Some landlords might find themselves, their profits vastly reduced. Their bills are going up, and maybe they can't put their rents up, and interest rates are going up. In the US now, mortgage rates have hit a 14-year high, and the rise in interest rates in the US, the aggressive rise in interest rates, has caused the pound to slide against the dollar to a 37-year low. That means that everything we buy out there, all our oil and imports, are costing us more money because it's paid for in dollars. The dollar is the strongest currency in the world at the moment, in the international fields. So how will these higher interest rates affect property prices, the wider economy and the stock market? Well, higher interest rates will increase the cost of borrowing, obviously, but it increased the cost of borrowing all over, and it means that less money is floating around in the economy. It's designed to slow down the economy. In fact, the World Bank has warned that the aggressive interest rate rises by central banks around the world could cause a world recession next year into 2023. But that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to slow the economy down. I mean, this is what happens. Things run in cycles. So we have good years where low interest rates are there. We all go out and borrow more money. People are remortgaging their properties to build things and build extensions and things they don't really need, but it's just nice to have. They're also buying cars and boats and all sorts of things, holiday homes and that sort of thing. So that's when the good times are here, the party's here. But maybe the party is coming to an end. And I think it is coming to an end because you can't just keep borrowing money forever. It's almost like money has been created out of thin air since the 2008 crash. And I think something has to give in the end. It's still going on at the moment. Stock markets are wavering. They're quite high at the moment, but September is always a bad month for the stock markets. The stock market had its worst fall since 2020 this week in the US. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And the governments are trying to slow down inflation. Inflation, kills things because it's like a vicious cycle. Prices go up and then people want more money, they want more salary. So the unions say, we want higher salaries. It's happening now in the UK. Train drivers, post office workers, and various government workers want more money to live. They say, we can't live on this. Inflation has gone up, food inflation 10%. I was buying parts for the car recently, 35% rise in parts for cars. This is since Brexit, actually. So, and we're seeing corporate insolvencies have jumped in the UK, England and Wales. And, economic conditions are starting to hurt businesses. These fuel prices are really hurting some businesses. And one of the largest companies, FedEx, saw its profits go down. They've had a profits warning, so we're not going to make as much money. And its share prices plunge because they're thinking that FedEx is like a bellwether share. FedEx is doing well and people are doing stuff and sending stuff around the world. Then that things are good. But when companies like FedEx go down, something is perhaps not right. So as I said, we've had the good times, we've had the party, but the cycle never lasts. Eventually the governments have to rein things in, and then they take measures to slow the economy down. It hurts people, means they have less money in their pockets. They're not as confident to go out and borrow. So company profits go down, and we have a recession. Asset prices have been going up with this inflation and printing of money. Property prices are still rising, but they are slowing down. But eventually they have to start slowing down. I think they will. It's not going to be like a stock market crash, which I think we are going to have, but it could slow things down and become more difficult for landlords to make money with higher mortgage rates, which we are seeing in the UK. And even if you've got a fixed rate now, eventually that fixed rate will come to an end, and then you'll need to change your mortgage, and you'll find you're going to be in for a bit of a shock. I tell you, your payments could double, and you can't just go and double your rents that easily. One suggestion by one commentator was that if you think rent controls are going to come in, which I'm not sure they will in England, it might cause landlords to put up their rents now. I mean, this is a good point actually, because a lot of landlords, including myself, tend to sort of let things go. You renew a tenancy, you don't put the rent up because you don't want the tenant to leave, and then you have to get another one and pay another agent fee. So you just let things drift for a few years. So your market rent might be well behind the market. Your current rent might be well behind the market rent. If you haven't increased your rents for say 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then maybe now's the time to review it in case they cap the rent at what they're paying now. Now, I don't think this is a real threat right now, but it could come in. So just keep an eye out for that. Join things like the National Landlords Association, NRLA they're called now, because they have a lot of information out there for landlords, and there's a lot of free stuff you can get. It doesn't cost a lot of money, just over £100 a year, but you can get conferences, you get free information, you get free resources and downloads like tenancy agreements and that sort of thing, and you also get training which you have to pay for, but it's really good stuff, and definitely if you're a landlord you have to join that organization. But look, I think the party could be over. Now is the time really to manage your money and get control of your finances. Now's not the time to be out blowing money and just buying cars on big leases and expensive leases. If you have to obviously, but and sometimes it can be cheaper to lease a car than buy. But now's the time to be a bit more careful, I think, with your money. Yes, people still have money at the upper end of the market. People are out there still spending. There's still people going to expensive gyms and going on expensive holidays. But if you're in that position where you perhaps are not in such a wealthy place, then now is the time to start really managing your money. I mean, let me ask you a question. Do you have any savings? As Ray Dalio said, savings is security. Savings is long-term financial security. Do you have any savings? I mean, for how long do you think you could last? How long could you pay your bills for if your job stopped tomorrow? If you were laid off, made redundant, how many months could you keep going? Ask yourself these questions. Do you know how to invest your money? Do you know where to invest your money? Do you know how to build long-term security and financial freedom? And if not, I mean, are you just fed up struggling? Have you just had enough of struggling, not having enough money, always borrowing when you don't want to borrow, borrowing to buy things like a new fridge? Are you just fed up with it and you just want to get something done and you've had enough? Well, if you're in that position, then I think I can help you transform your finances and help you to become financially free over time. It's not a get rich quick, it's not immediately, but I think I can help you. Now, a few slots have opened up in the coming week, next week, not this week, but there's a few slots for my what I call a free Wealth Accelerator discovery call, where we get on the Zoom call together and we look at your finances now for about 30 minutes and we decide whether I can help you or not, what direction you should be going into, and at the very least it will give you a chance to review your situation, which you must do from time to time. So do check that out. It's a free offer, and don't forget to like and subscribe my podcasts and my broadcast, because it helps to get it out there to the wider public and gives a lot of free content out there. So thanks very much for listening. Have a great day. Do check out that free Wealth Accelerator discovery call. Bye for now.